Good evening. Today is the 17th day of October 2015, and we continue with Book 1, Book of Beginnings, Canto 5, the Yoga of the Spirit's Freedom and Greatness, as always with our dear Alok. Namaskar. I'm paraphrasing Mother, but she said once, the simplest Indian villager is closer in his heart to the divine than any Western intellectual. Savitri is not to be approached with the intellect. I think even more than concentration, it's consecration that we need for Savitri. Alok, we begin with a will,
Yes.
a hope immense, now seized his heart.
So this is another of that one-liner
Yeah.
we were speaking of.
Yes.
And as such, poetry is not so much about meaning, but about the suggestions and the hints through which it opens a door into something which the poet has conjured through a body of words. That's the beauty of poetry. That's how I look at it. So, what you were saying just now. So that's why these hints, these suggestions, these images which flash in the mind, it's beautiful if the heart has an opening to that. Otherwise, the mind just gets lost in the meanings. And we'll see, how it applies so beautifully here. Ashupati, in this one line, it's revealed that he is a man of destiny. He is come with a work, a mission, and this is a point from where his yoga begins to part. And it is not he who chooses it. He is chosen for it.
Yes.
This sense comes earlier also. Sometimes the Supreme Mystery elects a human vessel for its descent.
Yes,
So
yes.
this sense of Ashupati, the avatar, who is chosen for this particular work, he has come down with a certain mission, and that is being revealed to him. It comes through this line, a will, a hope immense, now seized his heart.
Yes.
It's not something which, it's not, it's given to him. It's not something which he is mentally thinking that, okay, I have seen this, experienced this, let me try this out. It's not at all like that.
Even though he had that knowledge first
Yes, he
of
had,
time-born
absolutely.
men. But I go back to another line that tells us who he is.
Yes.
Adept of the self-born, unfailing line.
Yes.
So this is all
Yes.
encapsulated
Yes,
in that.
yes. So that's why he has been, he has become the vessel of the supreme descent, if one wants to put it that way. And now that greater destiny is unfolding before him. That's the sense which comes in this canto.
Yes.
Up till now, up till the secret knowledge, definitely till the yoga of the soul's release from ignorance, is a path which many have traversed. Any number of yogis.
Yes.
Some have hurriedly glanced into the beyond, which Ashupati mentions. But they have glanced, they have known or glimpsed something which is beyond all expressions, and eventually waited for the moment when this body will be shed and they would merge into it. But now for Ashupati, a new turn comes. And I think this is the turn that changes destiny of man.
Yes.
Because, and Sri Aurobindo says that it was beyond him. It was totally, he was born for it. Otherwise, traditional yogas would finish there. Who would want to aspire for something more than what he had already realized, when we see before coming to Pondicherry?
Hailed and
Yes, that will also come. Hailed and coerced.
yes.
And to discern the superhuman's form, he raised his eyes to unseen spiritual heights, aspiring to bring down a greater world. Now, this is very interesting. That not only the consciousness, but even the form, there is a prototype of the forms that exist in the ideal world, which nature tries to replicate. And it's a very, very fascinating aspect of all forms, in fact. All forms are an effort of nature to symbolically represent a truth. Like the human form, suddenly we see that it's erect. It can look up, unlike most of the animals. The birds can fly in the air. But to look up, to bend the neck like this and to look up, it's something very unique given to man. It's as if he is destined for this kind of a journey upward. And Nalita speaks about it. Mother and Shobinda have also spoken about it. The whole arrangement of the human form symbolically, it creates the hierarchy of the gods. And one of the Upanishads speaks about it, that when various forms were being created, and the gods were asked to inhabit, but they would refuse. But when the human form was created, it's the Aitreya Upanishad, then the god said, yes, this is a form we can go into. Now this is the mystery of the form. And the mother in the agenda reveals something very interesting, that man comes from very high. I have seen the form of the ideal man,
Yes.
and on the borders of the overmind.
Yes.
So man is destined, even in his bodily form, to travel up to that point.
She mentions this in the supermental ship.
Yes,
Also.
yes, that man comes from very high. And then there is a form which is beyond that, the human form as we know, and that also wants to manifest. So there is an ideal imprint. See, it changes the whole way we understand spirituality, because till now there is always a dissociation between the form and the essence or the consciousness. But even the form is foreseen, if you may use the word. And Ashupati wants to see what this superhuman form is. How beautiful this is.
Yes.
And again, sometimes we were speaking about suggestion. Shobinda uses a commonplace word, but a word, what a way he uses it. So here is this word called home. The glory he had glimpsed must be his home. If we go by the dictionary meaning, home is, well, a dwelling place. And normally we think that where my physical being dwells, that is the home. Or sometimes we think that, well, where my consciousness dwells, that is the home. That is a higher mystic meaning. But here he is speaking about the form, the body, that home. It must become that ideal, worthy of the spirit's flame. So he's given a totally new meaning. Because normally we have these two meanings. One is the common meaning, home is a place where my body dwells. The mystic meaning is home is where my consciousness dwells, my dwelling in the divine.
On a simpler front, it's where I live and
Where I live, that's the common ordinary.
live
But
my life.
here, the body itself is the home of the spirit.
Yes.
And so we see here, the glory he had glimpsed must be his home. A brighter, heavenlier sun must soon illume this dark room with its dark internal stair. So now he
fantastic
makes it
line.
very clear. Yes,
Very
fantastic
clear.
line. That this home which is so dark compared to the glory of the spirit, this too must be illumined by the spirit's splendor. This dusk room with its dark internal stair. And now there are some very interesting lines, and it's very strange. You were just speaking about the intellect, and Shobindo speaks of that. The infant soul in its small nursery school, mid objects meant for a lesson hardly learned, outgrow its early grammar of intellect and its imitation of earth nature's art. So, there are two kinds of schooling which goes on in life. We all know it. One is, of course, technically the school, which we enter and we finish, and we believe now we know. So, another kind of schooling which goes on throughout life, where every event, every circumstance, every maybe interactions, every objects that we see, the sun, the sky, the river, the trees, the bird, the beast, everything is there like a teacher to us. And if we really look at life with that way, we'll begin to understand the deeper meaning behind these symbol figures. But what we are taught in school is not that. We are taught about processes, constitutions, the physical, how they are built. So this is the grammar of the intellect.
The grammar of intellect, yes. Yes.
But there is something else. And its imitation of earth nature's art, its earthly dialect to God language change. Earthly dialect contains earthly experiences. It cannot go beyond. But there are experiences which are sublime, too profound to be put into words. Mother speaks of that there is no way that the human speech can represent or express the supramental consciousness. It's not possible. So earthly dialect is what we common and ordinarily speak. There's a nice joke about it, by the way, of Amrita.
Ah,
You may be knowing it. Amrita, he was, of course, he was learning Sanskrit and very fond of Sanskrit, but he was also very
oh, yes.
full of jovial, and his mother tongue was Tamil.
Right.
So once
Great story.
he was, yes, wonderful child of mother, and there was a discussion going on between him and someone else, and this other person told him, Amrit, Sanskrit is such a beautiful language. He said, yes, yes, yes. He said, it is the language of the gods. He said, yes, it's a beautiful language. And then the other person passed a snide remark about Tamil and other languages. So Amrita, quick and witty as he was, he said, no, you don't know. Actually, God's language is Tamil.
Yeah.
So
Amongst
so he said,
Sanskrit's the language of the gods, but among themselves,
They talk in Tamil.
speak Tamil.
when they speak to us, they speak in Sanskrit. Language of the gods. It's a sign language. Sri Aurobindo once, with Motilal Roy in Chandanagar, he would stare in space for a long time. And he was asked by Motilal Roy once, what are you seeing? So he said, the gods, they are trying to tell me something. So, how the gods communicate. And here we have a beautiful suggestion. It's earthly dialect to God language change. How does God speak? How does he communicate to us? Through an unease in the heart, as the mother says.
Ah, yes.
Sometimes to yogis as etheric scripts. Sri Aurobindo speaks of that. At other times through the sign language of everyday life, of events and circumstances. So many ways God speaks to us. And we have to learn that. Outgrow the grammar of the earthly intellect.
Yes.
Many times the earthly intellect or the earthly dialect will say, wow, success. But as Sri Aurobindo says in one of his aphorisms, many of our so-called successes are great failures of the soul. So God language is very different. And we need to, understand that.
I also would like to call attention to the reader to look at words as Sri Aurobindo groups them. We have grammar,
Yes.
we have dialect, we have intellect, we have symbols and logic
Yes.
in 4 lines.
Yes. Similarly, at another place, he will bring
Oh, yeah.
everything that belongs to the mechanical world.
Yes.
In when he talks about the world of falsehood, towards the end, all these technological symbols he'll bring.
And one of the greatest passages, the sailor on the
Yes.
sea of time.
All symbols
Image after
connected with the
image.
images of sea. So, when mother taught Huta how to paint, she also gave a hint that Savitri will be revealed through images. It's not just by picking up a meaning from dictionary. Okay, we need some kind of a support to start with. But eventually it's through images which flash upon a quiet mind, like revelations. That's how revelations come. So many images are there in Savitri. Amazing images. It's living symbols, study reality, and learn the logic of the infinite. That's what we need to know. We have the logic of the finite, based on which we declare that either God doesn't exist or he is incapable. That's how I think Anatole France had written. But there is another logic, the logic of the infinite. And Sri Aurobindo says, with his characteristic wit and a divine irony, that your God met Anatole France in some heaven of irony, and there God gave his logic. His logic was that, I have always been of a little bit retiring predisposition. And when man came with his science and industry and said, I am going to change this world, God said, all right, go ahead, because he's a lover of freedom. And then he says, but what is it? The reports that I hear don't seem to be too good. Is it that science and industry could change the earth but would not? Or they would change the earth but could not. And so, that particular conversation is literally the logic of the finite and the logic of the infinite.
Yes.
So we have, one hint of logic of the infinite. And then, of course, the ideal must be nature's common truth. This is the irony or the tragedy of earth.
Yes.
That there are beautiful things inside us waiting to be born, but neither our speech, nor hands, nor feet, nor eyes, nor ears, this very body is not equipped, it's not built to manifest them. So they remain buried. So we feel like prisoners after a certain point of development, which the mother speaks about.
Yes.
Because you feel strange. Inwardly you are so different. But outwardly you have to meet with the same body with its load of animality. But it should be the common truth. Why should there be so much effort to find something which is us, the soul?
Yeah.
It's a paradox. It should be our natural thing. We should be born with this sense. So here comes the ideal must be nature's common truth. The body illumined with the indwelling God, the heart and mind feel one with all that is.
Yes.
Why this labor? Why this tapasya? Something as if something abnormal we are striving for. That which is the commonest of common, the real, the one, the unique, the soul, and yet to discover it, such a tremendous effort. And that's why they want the supramental consciousness to establish itself on earth. So that children who are born will naturally breathe this. And she hints at that after the descent of the supermind.
And 11 lines before, he uses the word illume,
Illume,
to light up.
To light up.
And here, the body illumined, already lit.
Yes, with the indwelling God. And this last line of this passage,
Yes,
a conscious soul live in a conscious world, where every object becomes conscious. See how mother dealt with everything. The vegetables would tell her, come, take me, leave me. And she speaks about the toothpaste, the water.
Yes.
We have lost that bond.
Yeah.
Because everything is covered as it were with a shroud of unconsciousness. Our own being and everything around.
In my interview with Pushpa, she told the most extraordinary story. I don't know if you've heard it.
No.
Mother was at a lumber yard
Yes.
choosing the wood, the logs that were to be used for the new furniture in Sri Aurobindo's room.
Right.
And Pushpa said, Mother came out, and they were all ready to leave, and she went back in again. They said, Mother, we're ready to leave. But Mother said, no, there was this log asking me to be part of it. Oh, my goodness.
It reminds me of something very personal, very touching thing, that when I was looking for a cot for furniture in my room, and they showed me few and told me, this particular cot has been seen by the mother. The wood has been seen by the mother. I said, this is worth everything else in the world. Give me this one. I don't care if it has any other issues about it, because the very fact there is a consciousness in matter.
Yes.
But we are unconscious and we see that unconsciousness all around us. So, how beautiful this is. And there is another line, a few lines below, when he speaks about the greatness of the spirit. The immortals, pride refuse the doom to live. A miser of the scanty bargain made between our littleness and bounded hopes and the compassionate infinitudes. He's speaking of the splendors of the spirit. And yet, what an adjective he chooses. Compassionate, willing to leave, to lift up man, to reach out to man.
And pride in a totally different way.
Different, very different way.
All of us
Yes.
understand pride in a very different
Look
way.
how beautifully he has lifted this word pride to its divine possibility.
Yes.
The immortal's pride. This cannot be my home. This body which is subject to all kinds of disease, to all kinds of errors, accidents, animality.
Yes.
No, this cannot be my home. Pride, the divine equivalent of pride. And these are small masterly touches of Sri Aurobindo, and they are all through and through his writings, and of course Savitri. The immortal's pride. It does not admit failure, defeat, doom. Immortal's pride. To accept failure, to accept defeat, to accept doom, to despair is not worthy of the immortal. Look at this word.
Yes.
Even if the whole weight of the sea oppresses, Sri Aurobindo speaks of that in one of his poems, To the Sea. Even if the entire sea oppresses my heart, still I would refuse to yield. I will not give in to my fate. This is called the immortal's pride. To wrestle with fate, to wrestle with doom, the spirit of the great. His height repelled the lowness of earth's state. A wideness discontented with its frame. Again, every word which has been used in a negative sense, Sri Aurobindo uplifts to what heights? There is a divine discontentment. If we were all contented with the way things are, then things would never change. So there is a place of contentment. Mother, speaks about it very beautifully in the agenda. She says, what should be the right balance between acceptance and surrender on the one side and the will to change on the other side? And she says Sri Aurobindo very much belonged to that in his outer being, who had a will to change. And then after a long passage she says, but first we have to learn to accept and then we have to bring the will to change. Meaning thereby, there is a kind of, will to change where we are not even willing to bear the burden of what is, but to bear the burden, to accept the way things are, and then work through it towards the change. So, to be just contented, not will to change, that's not something divine, because that would leave the earth just as it is. Numberless saints and sages have come who have simply accepted the world as it is. And there also there is a conversation when the disciple Satprem talks to her about Swami Ramdas and Ramakrishna and Chaitanya. And she says, oh, I know all of them. I know all of them. They are happy with the world the way it is. It doesn't concern them at all. And then she says, if I had adopted that attitude, there would have been no problem with the body. She says that. Because then you just ask for divine protection, it takes care of the body, and your inner being is safe. She says, but the problem comes the moment you put the pressure on it to transform. Then it resists. It's a whole new world. So, resiled from poor ascent to nature's terms. The harsh contract spurned and the diminished lease. What a line this is.
A lease, a contract.
The soul must come to earth for its evolution.
Yeah.
So, material nature says, all right, I'll give you a home and a body. So, there is a contract.
Yeah.
The contract is, but only up till this limit you will go. I won't allow you to evolve in an unlimited way because I know you come from the illimitable. So, we see this
So it's a diminished lease.
diminished
also
lease
that's
also.
given.
So, slowly, with passage of time. So, there is another similar line in Book 1, Canto 2, where she says, altered must be nature's harsh economy.
Yes.
And then she again, Sri Aurobindo says that a limitless soul in a limited frame. So all these suggestions that nature allows you to evolve, but up to a point.
Yeah.
From tamas through rajas till sattva to a thinker, a seer and a sage it will allow you. At most sainthood and yogis who in their inner consciousness can unite. Till that point the body can support. It's a long journey.
Yes.
But don't ask to change the scheme of things here.
Yeah.
So it's a harsh contract. At the end of the day, even the saint, the seer and the sage have to suffer. And she gives that example that Sri Ramakrishna, though he took upon himself the burden, he says that this perfection has never manifested on earth. That the very physical can support and change as the inner truth, as the inner truth reveals itself, even the physical should change. With mother's body, several times people would experience suddenly she has grown tall, or they would see her differently.
Or on that
Because,
edge.
yes.
Everything was perfect.
Yes. So that's because her body was still very plastic. It was built in a special way.
Yes.
And then, of course, there is a whole passage which speaks to us of what we are and what is the earthly state. And we again have a very amazing line here. Or we saddle with the vice of earthly form. We talk of vice as, defects of the vital, defects of thought, defects of character. The very material fabric is defective.
Yes.
And to take an earthly body means to take upon ourselves the burden of animality. Just can't escape it. Wise.
Yes. And look at the word saddle.
Saddle.
We saddle. Well, a saddle is something heavy.
Yes.
You put it on a horse to ride him. But we saddle with the vice of
Earthly form. It perforce takes you in a direction other than where your soul wants to take you.
Yeah.
You try and it doesn't allow easily.
Can't throw it off.
Can't throw it off. So it is something amazing how Sri Aurobindo has used words and phrases to describe precisely the kind of experience, even touches the real problem. The real problem is not just the vital being of man. We can work upon it. By grace, many things can get all right. It's not even the mind. It has serious problems, but that can be worked upon. But the very fact that consciousness is embodied in a body, half built in an animal make, we share its animality, its crudeness. We have to take gross food. We have to inhale all the subtle poison with the breath. So here is the problem. And towards the end of this page, there is no perfect answer to our hopes. So he knows our human issues. There are blind, voiceless doors that have no key. You hear something somewhere. A voice in the chamber of the heart somewhere. Maybe a little glimpse. But you don't have the key to open it at will.
The door. Yeah.
It comes and goes like lightnings in the sky. You can't control them. They come when they have to, and you say, wonderful. But that's it. So we have blind, voiceless doors. Thought climbs in vain and brings a borrowed light from the spiritualized mind, from the higher mind. But the original, the supramental sun is hidden. And then very, very touching lines. Cheated by counterfeits, sold to us in life's mart. our hearts clutch at a forfeited heavenly bliss, that which is discarded by the gods. And the robbers have captured it. And that they sell it to us. And that too as a counterfeit currency. What a, and we call it happiness. So,
And there is
provender.
provender for the mind's satiety. So this provender is food, nourishment, to fill, to sate the mind.
Yes.
And Nolini writes in one of his books that we may have to take a step down from the mind into the vital for the transformation.
Yes, that is true. He speaks of that.
So the mind's satiety, it can fill up.
Absolutely. And it can be very, very deceptive because, the mind can build a whole world. That yes, we understand the yoga, but we have not even taken a step. It's like somebody who sees a film of Mount Everest and believes he knows all about it or reads a book. There are thrills of the flesh, but not the soul's desire. Here, even the highest rapture time can give is a mimicry of ungrasped beatitudes, a mutilated statue of ecstasy, a wounded happiness that cannot live. Look at, you clutch that happiness and lo, it dies before you in your embrace. A wounded happiness. We didn't realize that it's very soon going to breathe its last.
Yes.
Happiness with fugitive feet comes for a while in our house and we say, okay, wait, I'm going to serve you something to eat. And before we have turned back, it's gone. Wounded happiness that cannot live. A brief felicity of mind or sense thrown by the world power to her body slave. Like, we give some food, some bliss, a little bliss is lent to us from above.
Right.
Little bit, so that we keep going. The journey does not become too distressing. So time to time, the gods throw some scrapings. The world power has been so designed that it keeps throwing scrapings and we keep getting hooked onto that. We never turn towards that which alone can satisfy. And then these two lines, look at again, it's a totally, he takes us to another part of history and geography.
Yes.
Or is simulacrum of enforced delight in the seraglios of ignorance. Now, seraglio, it's a refers to the harems.
The harems, the
The
wives and
Ottomans and the
concubines.
Turk, yes,
Right.
where enforced delight. They had to, as if there is a pleasing drama going on, music and orgies and of flesh going on, seraglios of the ignorance, enforced delight. For a moment, one forces to believe, very pleasant,
Yes.
but it's all nothing but a simulacrum. So you see again, to continue, for all we have acquired soon loses worth. This line reminds me on a funny note about a book I read on teenagers. Now, the book starts by a small note which is in the front page, and the author says, they were psychologists.
Uh-huh.
We thought we knew everything about child upbringing till we had our own. All that you have acquired, when it comes to real testing, it loses worth. It doesn't help us one step forward. So, the doctor to whom patients turn, believing that he will do an impossible miracle of the gods, is helplessly on the deathbed.
Yeah.
All his knowledge cannot save him from old age, from disease, from death, which finds a door. Even in the best hospitals all over the world, often I have to remind the patients of this example, that yes, doctors can give medicine, little bit help, but if you believe they are gods, please, God is God. Doctors are not gods. But patients very often invest them with the idea that they are gods. The divine can use anything as his instrument. But
Sri,
then
yes, and Sri Aurobindo says, ultimately, it is faith that
cures.
heals.
It is the grace which we open through faith.
Yes.
So you see, all we have acquired soon loses worth. An old, disvalued credit in time's bank. He knew everything, that checks have a limited period. Imperfections check, drawn on the inconscient. You have signed a check, but it has lost its value. It cannot give you the happiness that you want to encash.
And again, worth,
Yes.
credit,
Yes.
check,
Absolutely.
bank,
Bank.
in 4 lines.
Yes. And in consequence, dogs every effort made, and chaos waits on every cosmos formed. In each success, a seed of failure lurks. This is the, if you want to put it, brutal truth about life.
Yeah.
In every success, the very fact of succeeding has brought in the fear that it is not going to last. A seed of failure.
Seed of failure.
It lurks.
Yes.
He saw the doubtfulness of all things here. Now you see, very often people talk about vairagya in Indian thought about, in mysticism, great value is given to vairagya, the disillusionment with life and a kind of detachment. And when Mother was asked about renunciation, she says, no, as long as you have to renounce and you feel the pain of renunciation, it has no meaning in our yoga. It is a joyous thing. Now, these lines that follow here remind me that in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, what vairagya really means. It's not the usual vairagya. It's not that, the world cannot satisfy my vital and mental longings. That's what normally vairagya, a recoil. Or it's often considered to be the body's indifference. That's not vairagya. Nor is it the vital's disappointment and recoil. Not even the mind's philosophical understanding of transience of earthly scenes. All this kind of vairagya is all right for the conventional yoga, at least the third one. The first 2 are of not much use. The first one is tamasic, leads to nowhere. The second one is rajasic, which can act as a spur momentarily. Sometimes the spirit can seize on that moment, but more often than not, that vairagya, which is more a recoil from world because of disappointment of a vital desire, will come back to the desire in another way. But a true vairagya, if at all we may use the word, where you have seen that even the highest rapture that time can give, this is not what your spirit wants here, something else, is so imperfect. He saw the doubtfulness of all things here. Even of being a saint and a sage, because you are still in that mortal body, still with that animality which is held behind, suppressed below, but it's there. So what is the usefulness of that? And this opens the door to a very different kind of vairagya, where you are in the world knowing fully well that it is imperfect, but you strive to bring perfection into the scheme of things from a higher vantage point.
And then that powerful line, the
Yes.
incertitude of man's proud, confident thought. Oh.
And whatever we may achieve, the highest is really a passing show on the screen of life.
We're confident about it, but it's
Yeah.
an incertitude.
Yes, incertitude. There is a interesting story in Mahabharata about Bhima. Bhima is a very straightforward man. He is shown as the Yudhishthira is truthful. He is a mentally truthful man. But Bhima is straightforward. His truthfulness stems from the vital. But it's the way things are. So once somebody writes a letter to Yudhishthira and asks for some solution to some problem. And Yudhishthira sends word that now it's already night. Tomorrow in the court I will settle this issue. So this man comes and says to Bhima that, young prince, I am urgently in need of this solution, but Yudhishthira has said tomorrow, can you help me? Can you go to Yudhishthir but Bhima has his own way. He is full of humor also. So he says, yes, yes, surely. So he goes and rings the bell, which is in the center of the city, and everybody gathers. Something very urgent has happened, important. So the whole city folks come there. What is it? Why has Bhima rung the bell? Even Yudhishthir comes. And he says, what happened, Bhim? Why have you rung the bell? He says, no, Yudhishthir, you have become immortal. He says, what? Who told you this? You have called the whole crowd? He says, yes, of course. You said you will sort out the problem tomorrow. Only an immortal can say that. Who knows that he is going to live for another day. Now, this incertitude, our life hangs between these two.
Yes.
A momentary certitude given to us as a faith, an instinct, an intuition to live our life.
And it's our proud,
It's
confident
yes,
thought.
confident thought.
Yes.
But behind it, the incertitude that constantly. And then these last few lines, he is a smallness trying to be great. This is the beauty of Sri Aurobindo, that eventually he brings in that divine touch, which makes it a whole picture. Because if we look at it only this, it's dismal.
And that negative always turns
Yes,
into
something
positive.
positive. This is so true of all the writings of Mother and Sri Aurobindo.
Absolutely.
That poem, Is This the End? Which some people, find it a little dark. But if you see that poem, the last two stanzas completely overthrow whatever, dismal picture there is, that is this the end, a body rotting under a slab of stone. But he ends up that even when the tree has fallen, does the song and the singer end?
Yes.
Immortal in the mortal is his name. Those few lines completely as if change the whole sense of the preceding lines.
And we have that here.
We have that here. He is a smallness, trying to be great, an animal with some instincts of a god. His life a story too common to be told, and yet we take such a pride and pleasure in talking about our life. What is there? As somebody has said, the commonest history of the world can be summarized in 3 short lines. Men were born, they lived, they died. Yeah. Umar Khayyam puts it in a funny way. He says, a little while there was a talk of you and me, and then a hush and a silence, and no more of you and me. Yeah. That's it. So this is the usual story. His deeds a number, summing up to naught.
There it is. Whatever we achieve sums
At the
up
end,
to naught.
His consciousness a torch lit to be quenched. His hope a star. Above a cradle and grave.
What a fantastic image. Huh? His
hope
hope,
a
a
star.
star above a cradle
And
a
a
grave.
grave. There is a star.
Yes.
There is hope. The cradle, when the child is born, there is this. Where is the end? The star is where it is.
Yes.
The grave.
And now the whole thing
Now
turns.
it turns. And yet a greater destiny may be his. For the eternal spirit is his truth. He can recreate himself and all around and fashion new the world in which he lives. This is what is given to us. Much later it will come, O force compelled, fate driven, earth-born race.
Yes.
Not for a small littleness were you born. How beautiful, that this transient earthly being can fill these orbs with the transcendent sight. He can recreate himself and all around and fashion new the world in which he lives. He, ignorant, is the knower beyond time. Within us. He is the self above nature, above fate.